If it's been a good road trip, you should have a tale to tell about it, or a trip report. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, today I'm going to talk about a trip my brother and I took over Labor Day weekend to see South Dakota State football team at Ames, Iowa, playing Iowa State. So one of the first things we learned is that you can't always rely on maps. Because this map shows parking, and they said, oh, you have all kinds of parking in these brown areas and over here on to the south of the stadium, and you have this other area to the east of the stadium. And we arrived at Ames at 5:20, and this was full, and this was full. Asked one of the attendants, what do we do about parking? And he said, well, you can go find street parking. And I thought, if I were in Minneapolis, this would be a very tricky proposition, but maybe I can get away with it in Ames. So we drove east and more east until we found a parking spot in a street, and we walked back to the stadium 1 2/3 miles away. So when we got into the stadium, we found our seats and started with the pregame show. And one of the videos that they showed was talking about a weather alert being a cyclones being the team mascot. And they talked about fast touchdowns, quick defenses, all jackrabbits should take cover immediately. And I thought, well, okay, I can see this. Granted, I'm used now to taking a lot of grief being from South Dakota State and having the mascot of a jackrabbit. But when I compare jackrabbits to the Cyclone, I think Jack would do pretty well against Cy here. Jack would probably give Cy a good run for his money. But I'm not, I don't want to get into a mascot war today. But what really frustrated me was when the video came up about the weather. You cannot mock the weather. You cannot use the weather for partisan purposes. And as the video was playing, my brother and I looked to the south and saw a bank of clouds rolling in. At 4 minutes into the game, Iowa State had scored the first touchdown, and there was, of course, a 4-minute delay to do all the commercials and all the parts or the activities to entertain the crowd. And one person came out on the field and caught the referees, and they had to suspend the game because there was lightning within the area. And the rules say that lightning had to clear for 30 minutes from the stadium and no lightning strike within 8 miles of the stadium. And it sounded like it was a voluntary evacuation, so my brother and I looked around, and we're 3 rows from the top of the stadium, near a major light pole. We decided we were not going to risk the electric atmosphere in the stadium. So we walked down to the concourse and stayed dry as we could, and waited, more lightning, waited some more, walked the concourse, talked to a gentleman from Austin who says he'll drive 50 miles to John Hardy's, out of his way to come to John Hardy's, which I thought was an interesting discussion during this rain delay. That's how highly he thought of John Hardy's. And finally, at 9:40, they called the game. And we walked back our 1 2/3 miles to our car, found it. It was not towed, not ticketed, so I don't have to put that on the expense report. It actually didn't rain all that much, but there was a lot of lightning in the air, so we then drove back to Rochester that night. And if I'm going to submit an expense report for this event, I'm still trying to figure out how I can claim this ticket as a charitable deduction to the Iowa State athletic program, because I saw 4 minutes of a game, and that's all I saw. But I haven't received the receipt yet from Iowa State, so I really can't claim it. I'm sure I can't do it on taxes till I have a good receipt. So anyway, a very abbreviated trip report back to and from Ames. Back to you, Andon.